With the mercury rising outside, it's about to heat up on the hardwood. And here to give us a playoff preview is Ronald Agers of the True Hoop Network of ESPN. Ronald, so great to see you, and thanks for joining us this afternoon on the Two Man Advantage podcast.
Good to see you, Kevin, man. Nice to be here. Thanks.
From Blake Griffin to Derrick Rose and even to Dwight Howard, injuries have played a big role in this year's playoffs. So, can you tell me how you think injuries will affect this year's playoff run and how players return from injuries?
In some ways it'll impact it, in some ways it will not. I think with Derrick Rose, it won't impact the Bulls as much as people think. When I was covering the Chicago Bulls last year and during the off season, I didn't think that Derrick Rose was going to be as big a factor as people want to think. A lot of people, they keep thinking that, hey, we're going to get the 2010 Derrick Rose MVP guy. He's not that guy anymore. He's got two bad knees. He's a different player. More importantly, it's a different team. The Bulls haven't been able to count on him for a couple of years now, so they're going to keep right on going. They say Derrick Rose keeps saying he'll be back this year. Even if he is, he's not going to be in the flow of the offense. He's going to be out of sync. He's going to be out of whack with his teammates. Now, as for Dwight Howard and Blake Griffin, that's a different case. Their teams really do need them to go further in the playoffs. Blake Griffin, I think it'll be a little bit more seamless because they have Chris Paul as the point guard. So I feel that he'll come back in and everything will work itself out. I think he'll probably be back next week. Dwight Howard, on the other hand, is it's going to be a very, very interesting story considering that the Houston Rockets have done such a great job with James Harden, and he's an MVP candidate. And with all the other players stepping in for Dwight Howard while he was out with his injuries, will Dwight Howard be willing to take on a lesser role on the offensive side of the ball? Is he going to be willing to accept the fact that all he has to do, that he needs to just rebound, be the rim protector, and the defender? Will he be able to give up less shots for the offense that the Houston Rockets run?
And can you tell me what are some top five storylines you'll be watching for this playoff season?
Again, in Chicago, will Thibodeau be back after this season? You got to understand, everybody's been saying that Thibodeau's such a great coach. I'm one of those guys that don't agree. He's lost seven postseason games in the last 8 games, including 4 straight home postseason games. The Washington Wizards pretty much beat them down last year. I wrote an article about him, should he even come back to Chicago. Now starting to become the case. With this team being loaded up as well as they are, if they get knocked out in the first or second round and they don't make it to at least the conference finals, I see him getting fired. Number 2 is Golden State and Atlanta for real. However, are they good enough? I really don't think so. I love Steph Curry. I love the Splash Brothers. They're good to watch in the regular season. However, I think they lack that inside presence to deal with the Memphis Grizzlies and the Bash Brothers and San Antonio Spurs with Tim Duncan. If you think about it, Indiana even being in the playoffs right now, that's a storyline in itself. We all remember Paul George and his horrific leg injury. With him coming back and having a chance to play in the playoffs, they could be a sleeper team to watch. Number 4, the Spurs. Everybody thought they were up and dead in a couple of weeks ago. Now they're starting to pick it up again after the rodeo trip. They're in a 7th spot, and they're moving up real quick. And number 5, my goodness, the Dallas Mavericks and their trades. It's really a bad time right now. They brought Rondo in, that hasn't worked out. Amari Stoudemire basically scolded the team after their loss last night. So those are the storylines. I just don't. It's going to be up in the air this year. It's really going to be something interesting to watch, and the storylines is just so endless. But that's 5 of them.
And in terms of the Eastern Conference, Atlanta's been consistent all year, and they were the first team to 50 wins. But do you think they'll be able to sustain that throughout the playoffs?
Atlanta is pretty much a very, very shocking team, and they're pretty much the story of the NBA because you got to understand they had a lot of chaos in the offseason with Danny Ferry, who actually built this squad with the Luol Deng scandal because he's not even with the team right now. He's been suspended, and he's probably going to be the executive of the year. Mike Budenholzer, who is a Greg Popovich disciple, what makes them so wonderful is the fact that they play team ball. I mean, you got to remember earlier this year, their starting five won Player of the Month for the Eastern Conference. That's never been done before. They're a very wonderful team. They play well together. They're kind of like the San Antonio Spurs of the East. They're a very, very good team. Their weaknesses they have is this. I'm not sure that they have that go-to guy that can get them a basket and make a play in crunch time when it's like Game 7 of the conference finals or the NBA finals. And they're a little bit small on the front line.
And in terms of the Cleveland Cavaliers, they started off 19 and 20, but they've reeled off a stretch to get them to the second seed in the Eastern Conference. So what flipped, in your opinion, for LeBron and the Cavaliers?
Their front office. David Griffin has done an outstanding job of bringing in players that they needed to make this run. Bringing in Timofey Mozgov from the Denver Nuggets and actually bringing in and actually saving J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert from the New York Knicks fan. I can tell you right now, the Knicks and J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert were not working out. It's like they were waiting for the off season. J.R. Smith has provided athleticism, plus their three-point shooting that they needed. That's probably why they didn't bring Ray Allen in. And Iman Shumpert also can defend on the wing as well, who can help LeBron James, who has stepped back a little bit on the defensive side of the ball this year. The biggest acquisition they had was Timofey Mozgov. A lot of people don't realize. Remember back in the day when he was actually a bird when Blake Griffin dunked on him a few years back. But he has provided that rim protection and defense, and he's that big body that they really, really needed. When they were 19 and 20 early in the year, when they were struggling, they were a small team up front. Kevin Love is not a defender down low. We all know this. He's a perimeter guy. He does not defend very well. That's why he was sitting down on the bench in the fourth quarters. Timofey Mozgov is that big body that people have to contend with, so they can't just go to the basket as easy as they did earlier in the season.
And just one follow-up on Cleveland about David Blatt. What do you think clicked for him? Because there was speculation earlier in the season that he was going to lose his job. So what flipped for him, and why do you think he's found his footing in Cleveland?
I don't think it was about him losing his footing in Cleveland because the man can coach. I mean, whether you be in Europe or Japan or on Mars, basketball is basketball. He had a system and he had to implement that system. I mean, he had new players. Because this team was totally built for him to just, it was a young team before LeBron came back, and it was a system that everybody had to get used to. It's a motion system. I always thought it worked. David Blatt can coach. I mean, he was a championship coach in the European leagues. So why would not let it translate to the NBA? My thing is this. I feel that, again, with the front office of Cleveland, they said David Blatt is going to be our coach, and you're going to have to deal with it. In my opinion, this is my opinion. I feel that probably the front office told LeBron, look, you're going to have to work this out with this guy, because I didn't like the way his body language was. And I don't think he bought into Blatt's system in the beginning as well as he should have. They all say LeBron is a great leader and everything, but at the time, he was not showing the leadership qualities that David Blatt needed to coach these young guys and whatnot, because they have to be on the same page. I mean, take San Antonio. Greg Popovich can scream and curse Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Ginobili out and whatnot, but they buy in. So in other words, if Popovich to this point, doesn't have to say anything because he knows those three guys are on the same page with him. LeBron was not on the same page with David Blatt. So, in my opinion, I feel that LeBron pretty much had to come around a little bit and buy into the system as well for things to turn around.
And in terms of sleepers in the playoffs this year, what teams will you be looking for that may be a dark horse in this playoff run?
Don't be surprised to watch out for Indiana. Watch out for Indiana because again they play hard and they defend. And the Eastern Conference is kind of weak. Always remember that. I mean, outside of Cleveland and Atlanta, with Chicago losing Derrick Rose, and they're starting to slip. They're on a 3-game losing streak. Indiana has a chance to slide in there. They won 6 straight games, so they've been together longer. You got Paul George back, David West. I feel they can probably make some noise in the playoffs. On the Western Conference, I'm not sure, but watch out for Houston. Houston probably could shock some teams. With James Harden playing at an MVP level, Dwight Howard coming back, and if he can accept his role, that's very, very important. Look for those two teams to shock somebody. I wouldn't be surprised if Indiana makes some noise in the playoffs or Houston making the NBA Finals.
And in terms of just the Western Conference as a whole, Golden State and Memphis have been in the top 2 or cream of the crop all season in that conference. But do you think Golden State is physical enough to win it all? And how do you look at Memphis's physicality as an advantage for them in the playoffs?
Will Golden State go to the NBA Finals? Do they have enough physicality? No, I don't think so. Look, let's be clear. I love Stephen Curry. Stephen Curry is my favorite player in the NBA. Guy is 6'2". The boy can shoot lights out, and he got handles and whatnot. And he's probably going to be your NBA MVP. You heard it here first. But
over James Harden?
No. Especially after that, after him going through the legs and making the LA Clipper players look stupid, and then doing a step back 3, he basically won the MVP there, in my opinion. I think he's going to win it. Plus, with the NBA, he won the 3-point shootout and everything, and he's pretty much the star of the NBA right now. I don't see James Harden. He'll come close, but it's not going to happen. I don't think. But with Golden State, they're. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No. Continue with Golden State.
Oh, but Golden State is they're just not big enough up front, and I don't know if they can score enough points on the front line. Draymond Green, I love him to death. He's a tough player, but he's 6'6".
He's a local kid, yeah. He's from Michigan State.
I love him to death. He's a real tough player, but I don't think he's big enough or strong enough to deal with a team like Memphis or even San Antonio. Andrew Bogut is not an offensive threat, and David Lee, as of right now, he's not even in Stephen Kerr's rotation right now. So I don't think they score enough. And if they throw somebody at Klay Thompson and say, "Look, we're gonna take care of Klay Thompson. We're gonna take care of Steph Curry. Okay, we're gonna let the rest of the team beat us." I don't think they can score enough points to beat a team 4 times in a week and a half.
And tell me about, I know you're intimately involved with the Brooklyn Nets covering the club. So what happened with them this year? They were supposed to be they had much higher or loftier expectations. So what happened to the Nets this year?
You know something, Kevin? It took me a long time to figure out why the team is so bad, but the problem is,
because they have the payroll, right? They have a large enough I mean, they're paying Darren Williams $80 million.
Highest payroll in the NBA. But I think what happened was the ownership group, Mikhail Prokhorov, wanted to buy a championship. And I kind of liken it to like Donald Trump buying the New Jersey Generals of the USFL. He just said, okay, I'm gonna throw some money at I'm gonna throw money at this team, get some big name players, and then we're going to win the world title, and it just didn't happen. Let me put it: they're just a soft team. They're a perimeter team. They're just a perimeter team. Let's put it in perspective. Brook Lopez is making millions of dollars, and he comes off the bench. When your best post player is Joe Johnson, who is probably the 2 guard or 3 or a small forward, there's a problem in there. And their offense, they don't have one. Honestly, to be totally honest with you, they don't have an offense. And Darren Williams has not played well since Jerry Sloan retired. He just, as soon as he got that contract, he got lazy, and he kind of got fat, and that's where the injuries caught up with his knees and stuff like that. He's just never been in shape since he's been in Brooklyn.
And here locally, we're based here in Windsor and Detroit. So could you tell me what happened to the Pistons this year? I mean, the owner spent a lot of money on Tom Gores. He spent a lot of money to bring in Stan Van Gundy and try to corral Josh Smith. He was eventually traded. They started to play well under Brandon Jennings, and then he got hurt. So what do you think the future holds for us here with the Detroit Pistons?
The Detroit Pistons, they're on the right track. Because you got to remember, the Detroit Pistons were 3-17. I mean, they pretty much made the New York Knicks look like the Boston Celtics of the 80s. They were that bad. I think Stan Van Gundy has done a great job as a head coach, but he might have done a bad job here. He's done a mixed job as a general manager. What I'm saying is, when he released Josh Smith, he kind of strapped the team on the salary cap scale. He should have what he should have done is just used the stretch provision on him. But basically, he just gave him his money and said, "Please go away." But how he got Stan Van Gundy, the head coach, is he said, "Hey," he sent a message saying, "Look, you're either going to buy into this system, you're going to buy into this culture, or you're going to see the streets. So the choice is yours." I think they've done a very, very good job. They've done a better job of depending on Greg Monroe and Andre Drummond, because right now they've fallen off a little bit. They've lost 7 straight, but at 23-40, they actually had an outside chance of making the playoffs a couple of weeks back.
Because the East is so bad.
Yeah, and that too. I call them the Eastern Conference.
And in terms of just the overall playoff picture, here in Canada, we're also interested in the state of the Raptors. I know from talking to you earlier, you don't think the Raptors will have an extended playoff run.
No, I don't. They just don't. I don't think their front line again is big. I mean, I don't think they're big. I don't think they're big enough. Toronto, because right now they've lost 4 straight. They've lost 9 of 10. And I think they haven't snuck up on anybody like they did last year. Last year, we all were just shocked that they'd actually moved up to the third seed, but they ended up losing to Brooklyn. Kyle Lowry is a real good player. He's a real good player, all-star. He's a real good player, but I think if they take the ball out of his hand and they can frustrate him, he doesn't play as well under playoff pressure. Last year he didn't play well at all, and DeMar DeRozan he's had injuries and whatnot. I don't think Toronto has enough firepower to get out of the first round.
And finally, tell me, put your crystal ball on for me. Who do you think ultimately will host the Larry O'Brien Trophy at the end of June?
Coming out of the Eastern Conference, now that because I'm not sold on Atlanta yet, and now that Chicago with Derrick Rose's injury, even if he does come back, I still don't think it's going to make any difference. I don't think they would get out the second round. It's probably going to be Cleveland. But the caveat is this: LeBron James is going to have to buy into David Blatt's system, And he's going to have to let Kyrie Irving do what he do, meaning that Kyrie Irving is the only one on that team that can get his own shot at any time during the game. He can make a play in the last 2 minutes of a game. LeBron James, and I want you to pay attention to this. LeBron James tends to go to sleep and disappear in the last 5 minutes of a heavy pressure game, and he cannot hit a last second shot to save his life. I think Cleveland's going to go to the finals. My thing with the West is a little bit different. San Antonio.
It's all muddled.
Say again?
It's all muddled, the Western Conference.
Yeah, it really is. I think until San Antonio gets beat, I think San Antonio will, they're still the odds-on favorite to me. I'm still picking them. They won 6 straight. When they got past the rodeo trip, I knew they were going to start picking it up, which they do every single year. They're 6th in the conference now, and they're probably going to pass the Clippers, and they might pass Portland too. Don't be surprised. I'm going to roll with San Antonio, but watch out for Memphis. Memphis has that physicality. The Bash brothers, Mark Gasol and Zach Randolph, and Mike Conley is just a beast. That boy is one of the best point guards in the NBA. And you have to have a point guard. You got to have a front line. They are loaded from top to bottom. I just like Memphis, but I'm picking San Antonio to go back to the finals.
And finally, tell me about the venture that you're involved in with your dad, the sports world order. I know it combines both sports and entertainment together.
Yeah, the Sports World Order, it is a venture with my father, Walter Agers. What we're trying to do is we created a concept for a show, and we're trying to shop it out to radio stations and television stations. I've been in television media for 20 years. I've actually I produced radio shows, and I've actually been a correspondent for the Charlotte Bobcats. Now they're known as the Charlotte Hornets, but I spent a year covering them for a year. I've covered Chicago Bulls for the fan side of the network, and now I'm covering the Brooklyn Nets for Brooklyn's Finest for ESPN.com. So what we're trying to do is get our own show on the air and whatnot, and show fans a different side of the game, as opposed to just watching the ball go through the hoop or watching the football go past the end zone. Now we want to teach you why this happens. When we have conversations and do analysis, it's a different side of analysis. We try to do it in a different way. We're kind of straightforward. Sometimes we're not politically correct. But we want fans to learn more things about sports as opposed to what the final score is. To be perfectly honest.
Well, we wish you the best of luck, Ronald, with that venture. And if you ever need a co-host, we're always open to help you out here at the True Man Advantage there, buddy. Thanks for your time this afternoon and for joining us on the True Man Advantage podcast.
Oh, man, I enjoyed it, man. Let's do it again real soon.